Hey folks, my name is Michael Remsen. I'm a beekeeper on the coast of Maine, and today I'm going to show you how I assemble a wooden frame. It's not a big deal, just requires some glue and some nails, but if done properly, these frames will last you forever. I mean, almost forever. A couple things before we get started. When your frames come, they'll come all tightly wrapped together. I recommend that you assemble all of them. If you unstrap them, assemble all of them, because they're going to be a little moist and it's better if you assemble them that way. The other thing I wanted to bring up is this is what's called a wedge top bar, and the reason for that is they make a slice through that top piece, which will later become a nailing strip. And instead of just snapping that out, sometimes you end up with two pieces. So I prefer to put it in a vise, if I can get it in there. Use an utility knife and just slice the last little bit of that wood membrane. That way you end up with a complete nailing strip later. The other issue, or not issue, but the other part which makes these frames a little different is this is a divided bottom bar. And you can see that it's a little wider on the ends than it is on this side. Not that it makes much difference, but I have this side, basically the wider side, facing in towards the top bar. So frame wire, frames, blah blah blah, here we go. So I will use a chip brush and a little glue pot. The chip brush I've placed in water about 4 or 5 minutes before putting the glue to it. That way I can rinse it off later and reuse the brush again. Put the top bar in place, grab my 2 M bars, sister them together. Try to do a good job buttering them up. Glue is cheap and it's really strong if it has a little bit more structure to it. Another point I want to make is that this end here, this little right angle right there, is quite important in terms of having glue on it. So that's why I butter up that top bar too. I don't bother gluing up or buttering up the other, but here we go. So that I'm going to face to the inside. Like that, squeeze them together a little bit. Grab a nail, try to keep them as square as possible. And, you know, for people who have like a little brad nailer, well, this process goes faster, as you can imagine. But hand nailing them isn't a bad thing either, so. Now we're going to nail the top bar to the end bars, if I can get her in there. Okay, now this is kind of an important part, and I'll show you a little bit on a close-up, but I use the vise to kind of steady everybody. And that little higher reliefed area here, you want to try to put a nail as diagonal in there as possible, so when you nail it into that right angle there, you've got a little bit of extra structure there. So keep from buttering it up again. So, and there's no rush with any of it too. You've got lots of time, and oftentimes I make a mistake or fold a nail over. Not a big deal. So basically, before I square it, I'll take a kind of a wet rag and just kind of clean all those glue joints, just to wipe off the excess, you know. This little joint here, like I said, is very important where those two meet. Other side, right where they meet, is quite important. That holds a lot of structure. You often get a little bit of glue on the either end. But then once I've done that, take my handy square, and I'm a little out, so I just push it a little bit, and we're pretty well square there. So then I'll just drop it into a deep, or in this case, nuke that I have laying around, and then they'll sit in there for, try to let them dry out for at least a couple weeks. So I will, at another time, once these are dry, I'll have more videos on the wiring and putting the eyelets and yada yada. So thank you for watching. Enjoy your beekeeping.